All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming here tonight. So I think my understanding is this is only going to be for the TV camera, and it's not going to work in the room. Is that right? Okay. So yeah, you're all going to see me holding this. It's for the folks online. Welcome tonight. Thank you all so much for coming here tonight. It's wonderful to see this kind of turnout for a forum on local elections, which, as we all know, are so important in American democracy. My name is Jeff Lyons. I'm a faculty member at the School of Public Service at Boise State, and I will be the moderator for tonight. But first, I have a brief statement I want to read about the League of Women Voters. So the League of Women Voters of the Greater Boise area has focused on voter services with efforts such as vote411.org and candidate forums for many local and state elections. The League of Women Voters has a long history of encouraging participation in democracy. In 1920, following a long campaign that began in this country in 1848 in Seneca Falls, the 19th Amendment of the Constitution extended the right to vote to women. The National American Women's Suffrage Association convened for the final time in 1920 and reemerged as the League of Women Voters of the United States. For almost 100 years, the League's mission has been to provide for and protect a democracy that can only be sustained by informed citizen participation. In order to reach more voters, this forum is being recorded and live streamed by KTVB Channel 7 and will be available online to view again and share via ktvb.com. To find the video, you can visit their website or follow the League of Women Voters Greater Boise area through their Facebook page for updates and links. This is the final forum hosted by the League of Women Voters in the Greater Boise area for this election cycle. It is currently too late to request your absentee ballot. However, early voting opened this Monday, the 21st, and will close November 1st. To find early voting polling locations, you can visit the Ada County Elections Office website. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Your specific polling place will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on that day. The Ada County Elections Office website can direct you to your polling place. For the mechanics of how tonight is going to operate, we'll begin with each candidate giving a 1-minute opening statement, and then we'll move immediately to audience questions. So a number of you have already submitted questions, which is wonderful. We will do our best to get through as many as we possibly can. We also are going to give every candidate here a 1-minute opportunity to respond to every question. So we will get through a significant handful of questions, but we probably won't be able to get to every question tonight. What I'm going to do is try to summarize across sort of groups and themes. So if your specific question doesn't get asked, it may be because I had to sort of word it in a way that captured several people's interests. There are question cards located on your chair. Please fill out cards and hold them up, and volunteers will come around the room to collect. Question cards will go to the moderator, which is me, who may group similar inquiries together. So with that, I would like us to begin with our 1-minute opening statements, and we'll start at the far end of the table.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Patrick Bagent. I am one of the 6 candidates for Seat 1, and I think they have us kind of broken out in roughly that way. Let's try again. I am Patrick Bagent. I'm one of the 6 candidates for Seat 1 in this year's City Council race. I'm an attorney. I grew up outside of Moscow, Idaho. I'm one of those feral Idaho children who grew up with no phone, running water, power, moved out at age of 15, barely made my way through high school, struggled in college, and eventually found myself working as a firefighter for the Forest Service and taking intermittent breaks throughout college to kind of survive that schedule. I went to law school in California. I worked for 1 year for a federal judge and then for 6 years in a large law firm in Seattle. And I became very lonely and very miserable because I missed home, which is, for me, is Idaho. I missed going out into the Frank Church for long chunks of period at a time. I missed walking up and down the river and picking up rocks and fishing. I missed being outside, and I missed a lifestyle that would allow me to do that. I left my law firm, I moved here, and I dove as hard as I could into various forms of public service. We'll get a talk tonight about my background in conservation, about the various organizations that have endorsed me, but I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to tonight's event. Thank you so much for putting it on.
Thank you. I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a businesswoman, and a community advocate. I'm Karen Danley, and I'm running for Boise City Council, seat number 1. As a teacher, I have taught in the Boise School District for over 20 years. I've been a band director, a traveling band director, and taught at many different schools, which helps me understand the variety of demographics throughout the city. As a mother, my daughter is a junior at Capitol High School. As a businesswoman, my family has I'm a managing partner of our family business in Bismarck, North Dakota, Silver Ranch. And it's a planned development with 18% open space and 10 miles of trails. We really want to leave a legacy of a healthy and active lifestyle and a community that promotes that. I am also a community advocate, and I have accepted 2 appointed positions, one with the Ada County Solid Waste Advisory Committee, so I like to talk trash, and I also like to talk trails, so I'm also on the Ada County Open Space and Trails Board. Tonight, my goal is to earn your vote.
Good evening, all. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Takla Gabriel Michael. I am a new American. I came here back in 2012, knowing nothing about this secret place. When I got the ultimate opportunity to come to this country, I was told that I was going to Fort Worth, Texas, and I was happy because everybody in Africa knows about Texas, about Hollywood produces beautiful movies. But when we landed in Miami, I was told that my destination was changed to BOID. That's what it says on the airport code. Never heard of this place, and neither of my friends that was traveling from the refugee camp. One of them shouted, "Hey, Takla, you can say no. This is America. It's freedom, you know." But no, that's not really how it's going to work. Instead, I stepped forward, and I asked her, "Where is this secret place?" She smiled and said, "I'm not sure, but I can guarantee you that it's inside the United States." This is all I knew about when I was shipping the next morning to this secret place, which before the plane was landing at the airport, I looked through the small airplane windows and I saw the foothills, the river, and the mountain, which made an instant connection to the place where I was born and raised. And I told myself, this must be the right place, and it has been the right place. As soon as I got here, I focused on my education. It was taken from me for a long period of time while I was living in refugee camp for 8 years. I focused on my education. I've been working and serving the country in the U.S. Army. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. It's so weird having a microphone that's not actually blasting anything. But my name is Ryan Pack. I'm also one of the candidates in City Council Seat 1. There's 6 of us. I've spent my life, looking at problems and coming up with creative solutions, and a lot of the things I've done in this community are still impacting the community in really profound ways. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Boise Rock School. I also teach in the biology department over at Boise State, so my work is with kids, right? And I entered this race, and when I say kids, anyone, 24 and under, 30 and under, kids. But I entered this race to advocate for youth and to advocate for empowering our youth. And, from my perspective, all these issues we keep talking about, whether it's affordable housing or transportation or, all these things, rapid growth, they're hitting us all really hard now. But I know that they're going to hit the next generation even harder unless we make really good choices now. So I want to facilitate more all-ages cultural spaces, and I want to facilitate, systems of having kids be off their phones, be more engaged, and be building more resilience and empowering kids to choose, sustainable careers and creative entrepreneurship. So I'm all in for Boise. I'm glad you guys are all here. We're going to have a good time tonight. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on and KTVB for filming for everyone else that's at home to be able to watch this. My name is Brittany Sigliano. I am running for Boise City Council Seat 1. The mic is weird. It's a mind thing. I got into this race for a couple of reasons. The first reason being my 9-year-old daughter. I want Boise to be a place where she can feel good growing up, and I want it to be a place where she wants to come back to, a place where she can afford to have a home, a place where she can have a good job, and a place where she can feel safe. Thanks. I'm also running because the love I have for my city. The foothills and the river are one thing, but the people really are what make this city an amazing place. And for the last 2 years, I've been the president of my neighborhood association, working to tackle some of the really tough issues that our city is facing, livability, growth. I've spent many a night at planning and zoning and city hall, and probably have spent some of that time with you all here. So tonight I am running because I believe that all voices matter at City Hall, and I want to represent your voice, and I believe that having that at City Hall makes us stronger, and I hope you'll join me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Halliburton. I'm running for Boise City Council, Seat 3, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this tonight. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to earn your vote. I also want to thank my mom and my sister who came down here tonight. I've got 3 generations of women voters in Idaho, so it means a lot to me. I'm running for Boise City Council because I love this community. I was born and raised here, and I have loved it since the day I was born. I spent a few years of my life traveling around the country fighting fires for the Idaho City Hotshots, and I was always drawn back here, always drawn back to home. And I thought I knew what home was. I thought that I knew my community. But then at 25 years old, I started a nonprofit called the Boise Bicycle Project, and I realized that I was wrong, that there were so many parts of my community that I didn't know. For the last 12 years, I've had the opportunity to work with people from all walks of life, all income levels, all backgrounds, people who are experiencing homelessness, people who are recently released from prison, people who are just arriving here from the country. I have a history of helping people overcome obstacles, and that's what I want to do as a city council member, is help our city overcome the biggest obstacles that we're facing by bringing all the voices of our community together. Thank you so much for this opportunity tonight.
Good evening. My name is Meredith Stead. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for having us. I was the marketing director at Ballet Idaho for about 5 years, and now I work in the same capacity for Boise Valley Economic Partnership, where we help move companies here to hire the local workforce with high-paying jobs. And I'm somebody who's always built community, so I joined the Boise State Public Radio Community Advisory Board. I joined Leadership Boise, by which I was elected by my peers to serve as president. I joined the Funzi Board of Directors, and still I wanted a more impactful, positive impact on my community. So I was ultimately appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, where I have loved helping our citizens navigate through that complicated process. But I'm also very frustrated at times because we can't always legally make decisions that are in the best interest of the community, of the neighborhood, and the long-term vision of the city. So that's why I'm running for Seat 3, to make sure that we are keeping up with our infrastructure needs, protecting our natural resources, that we're tackling these tough issues like the rising property taxes, access to affordable housing, and transportation. Thanks again.
Hi, thanks everybody for being here. This is an amazing turnout. My name is Debbie Lombard Bloom, and I was always on that side of the aisle and never thought I would be on this side of the aisle because this is uncomfortable for me, but I thought it was important enough for me to be on this side of the aisle and bring my perspective because I don't think that we talk about it very much. I've always worked in the service sector, and it's something that we don't value as a community, and my husband works in the construction field, and so I feel that those things are not valued, and we're pushing some expenses that we're trying to implement in Boise onto the expense of those people. And so I'm fiscally responsible in my business, and we were fiscally responsible when I worked at Lowe's. And so I'm trying to bring that voice back to the council about being fiscally responsible so that those people in those jobs aren't feeling this pressure on our property taxes. And that's who I am. Thank you.
This is a great crowd. I was kind of thinking this room might not be big enough, and I think I was right. Thank you so much. Thank you, League of Women Voters, KTVB, everyone who's here tonight. My name's Elaine Clegg. I was born in Boise many years ago. I grew up in the East End. I lived on the bench. I went to Capitol High School, and now I live down in the northern part of the city. This is a great city, and I love cities. And the reason I ran for city council when I first ran was because of that love for cities and that love for growth management and what can we do to make cities better. And 16 years later, I'm still as enthused, as excited, as I was the very first day. And I think I've got a long record of accomplishments of helping the city, everything from historic preservation and open space preservation to improving our transit system to making our land use policies more workable for our neighborhoods. And I'm running again to bring that experience and that voice in the future to a council who's going to have a lot of new faces, exciting new faces, but I think having some experience will also be an important piece of that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Brady Fuller and I am running for Boise City Council Seat 5. I wanted to start off by first thanking you all for being here and taking time out of your evening to join us in this conversation. It's important and it matters. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for choosing to have it at this location. I have knocked on a lot of doors over the last few months and this area doesn't feel represented, so it's important that we're bringing the conversation to this neck of the woods. A little bit about me. I was born at St. Luke's in downtown Boise and I've had the good fortune of watching this city grow and evolve over the years. I am a first-generation college student. I went to the University of Idaho, where I studied political science and international studies. I then served in the United States Peace Corps. I served in a rural village, kind of where the jungle and the rice fields come together, of Western Cambodia, as an English teacher for 2 years. Since returning home, I've been appointed by Governor Little to serve on his commission on service and volunteerism, where I help everyday Idahoans get more involved in our communities all across the state of Idaho. And I too wanted to get involved in my community, the community that shaped me into the person that I am today, which is why I decided to run for Boise City Council, to be involved. So thank you again for being here, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So with that, we'll turn over to our audience questions. I want to thank all of the candidates for respecting the time limits. I really appreciate that. So to get going here, we have a series of questions that are somewhat similar, kind of asking about what you have done to improve your community. So I'm just going to ask one of them, which says, how long have you lived in Boise? And what have you done to improve your community in your time here? I know this is something that a few of you touched on, but perhaps you can elaborate.
Go ahead. Oh, are we going to start this way? Or?
We were going to start.
We'll start next time. We'll start.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm probably the only candidate who didn't thank you for putting this on, and I am very grateful. I have been in and out of Boise from about 2003 until 2007 when I went to law school. At that time, I was working as a firefighter, coming back and forth between Boise and McCall. I left in 2007, and I came back the night that it began snowing for the Snowmageddon winter. I pulled into town at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Lovely, nice snow in Idaho, and then it just kept going. Since I got here, I have been involved in a host of nonprofits. I'm on the board of Conservation Voters for Idaho. I'm on the board of Idaho Conservation League. I'm on the board of the Red Side Foundation, which is a suicide prevention and mental health promoting organization. And I'm on the board of a local training chapter for what we call versatile hunting dogs. In this organization, I spend a lot of time teaching young people how to train a working dog. These are all connected in some way to passions of mine, some very personal, some very tragic, and some very core to who I am in terms of engaging with youth, in terms of engaging with the outdoors, and protecting this place that we live. I am looking forward to continuing that service. That public service spirit has been part of my life since I was a small child. Both of my parents have participated in nonprofits. One made a career out of one. And I'm looking forward to continuing that service on the Boise City Council as well. These things are very dear to me, and I'm grateful to be here.
Good evening. I grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota, and then on a music scholarship, I went to the University of Oregon and earned my bachelor's degree. Then I went on to teach at Salem and then Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then I was enticed. I got a call and said, hey, why don't you come to Boise, Idaho? And I was like, I've never heard of Boise, Idaho. And they guaranteed me that this would be someplace that I would enjoy. I really love the outdoors, and they basically enticed me with the open space and trails and the greenbelt. And sure enough, I came to visit, and I moved here in 1993. So since then, I've been teaching for I've been here for 26 years, and over 20 years I've been teaching. I've been serving on the Northwest Neighborhood Association board for 2 years, and then also on the Ridge to Rivers 10-year master plan, and of course the other appointed Ada County boards. So I really am doing my part in perpetuating the reason that I was originally attracted to Boise, and want to continue that healthy and active lifestyle and balancing and respecting the needs of our current residents while we welcome new.
I've been here for a little bit more than 7 years since I was sent here in an accident. Soon as I got here, though, of course, I focused on my education that was taken away from me. But at the same time, I was busy helping my fellow new Americans coming to Boise. I didn't realize what I did when I was awarded with the Successful Refugee and Integration Award back in 2014. After 1 year, I got here. But I realized that was given to me for the future, that I had to do more. Since then, I've been working, mentoring new American youth, specifically just educating the American law and rules and the system here. I had the opportunity to work with the Boise Police Department in their community policing program. It's pretty much the same program that helping new Americans educating. And I'm one of the dedicated volunteers for the new program, Curbit, at the city of Boise, which is just telling you again about trash and the recycling process. It's very new, it's complicated, but all is on their website, and hopefully some of you get the opportunity to take a look on that. Yeah, my time is up. Thank you.
Okay, so I grew up in Twin Falls, so since I was a little boy, I would come to Boise all the time. My grandmother lived here, so I'd spend summers up here with her. I officially moved here December of 2004. And what have I done to make Boise better? Well, like I said in the intro, I sort of made this pattern in my life of identifying problems and coming up with creative solutions. So not long after moving here officially, we started Boise Rock School, and it was my response to how can we make music education be more fun? How can we get kids in the same room? And now the after-school program has around 400 kids that come every week. At the same time, I simultaneously recognize that music education doesn't always reach where it needs to. And so we started another nonprofit called Rock on Wheels that does music outreach education to places like the detention center. We've actually been in this room not very long ago doing free classes, St. Luke's Children's Hospital School, all over the place. And we also go out of Boise. And then we recognize that when these kids get older, they don't often have places to play. So me and my friend Eric Gilbert got together, and we started a nonprofit called Boise All Ages Movement Project. Literally a project, a nonprofit, a 501c3 that is activating all ages cultural spaces for kids where they can be passionate, they can build resilience, and they can, in the future, make Boise better. And I could go on, but time's up.
So I have lived in Boise for a little over 15 years now. I grew up in Emmett, just as we used to call it, over the hill, and graduated in 2000, took off for a little while for some schooling, and moved back to Boise in 2004, where I started working, which is then when I met my husband and decided to anchor down and stay in Boise because it is such a great community. I had the opportunity to get involved actually in my neighborhood association, which is where my volunteer service really started. And I was a stay-at-home mom, had a 3-year-old. Conversation with toddlers gets one stir crazy. So I started with a neighborhood association, and then a few years later I actually had the opportunity to go to work with a nonprofit that we were trying to start up, and the nonprofit was called Boise at Home, and it was a beautiful nonprofit geared at giving seniors a choice to age in place, and nothing like it in the community. Sadly, it is no longer. That's the question I probably get the most, is how can I get information for this? From there, once we got that up and running, I was called back to my neighborhood association to deal with some of the historic district dilemmas that we were dealing with. We had a lot of development coming in, and helped out with that. Also part of Preservation Idaho, and as I mentioned, the president of my neighborhood association for the last 2 years. That 1 minute goes fast.
So like I said earlier, I was born here in Boise, and I've dedicated my entire life to making Boise a better place for everyone. I've got a pretty great role model. My mom taught kindergarten for 25 years here in Boise, and my grandpa is largely responsible for restoring the mountain bluebird population, Al Larson. But since the day I was born, this has been part of my life. I used to be a peer tutor for students with disabilities in high school. I started fighting fires for the Idaho City Hotshots when I was in my 20s. I started volunteering for the Eagle Fire Department when I was in my mid-20s. And then again, I started the Boise Bicycle Project. And my nonprofit has donated over 6,500 bicycles to kids in this community, another 5,000 to adults who have transportation barriers. And we have made Boise into one of the strongest bicycle communities in the country. One of the things that I'm most proud of is a program that we started at the Idaho Department of Corrections Women's Facility, where we go into the prisons, we teach female inmates how to work on kids' bicycles, teach them mechanic skills, and once they've fixed up 15 bicycles, that earns them a bicycle so that the day that they're released, they have transportation options. But it also rebuilds community while they are incarcerated. It reconnects them to Boise. It reconnects them to opportunities that they've maybe never had before to give back. This is one of the many programs that I've started, and I'm so passionate about giving back to this city. There are so many incredible people, and I know that when we bring everybody up, we all do better. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been in Boise about 10 years. I lived all over the country because we moved around a lot for my dad's job, and I realized I was spending my whole life looking for Boise. So as soon as I found it, I put down my roots, and I knew I wanted to be a part of this community. So I did that by joining Ballet Idaho as their marketing director, and I was lucky enough to be able to manage and expand a program called By Special Invitation, which is actually where I met Tekla for the first time. We gave, at the English Language Center, we gave about $100,000 worth of tickets away every year to social service organizations around the city, including the WCA, Boys and Girls Club. But I really wanted to expand my impact on the community to outside my paid work. So I joined a lot of charity boards, nonprofit boards, and then ultimately, as I mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is about 20 hours of work a week for those 2 weeks a month, and really wanted to make sure I was having a positive impact on the community to ultimately preserve our quality of life here and really make sure that we're as a city planning forward to make those decisions that allow residents to stay in their homes, and really tackle some of the issues that we that I felt like maybe could be looked at a different way from the city's perspective, some fiscal responsibility, but also aligning that development code with our long-term vision of the city.
So I wasn't born in Boise. I was born in Pocatello. But my dad was going to school there to get his architectural degree. He's Ernie Lombard. He designed a lot of the buildings here. And so I understand how important it is to be a part of your community because I'm my father's daughter. But I haven't done any more or less than any of you guys have. You love your community and you volunteer and you're sitting on boards and things like that. But that's not what instigated me to run for council and to make this big of a step to run for council. To me, the council is supposed to be the checks and balances, and you're supposed to be the citizen that is those checks and balances between the city and what the staff wants to see the vision of the city to be. You're the checks and balances to make sure that the citizen's voice is being heard in that process. And I don't think that we have that process anymore where somebody is looking out, truly looking out for the citizens. And so that's why I thought that I could be that person, and that's why I made that leap and made that decision to actually go from here engagement, which I felt pretty comfortable with, to being here engagement. But that's why I am you.
It's a great group of people. Everyone here has given back to their community. I think it's in our DNA. I think it's in Boise's DNA. I have a pin on that was my grandmother's. She started a library in Cascade, Idaho in 1922. She served as a poll worker every election the rest of her life, and I learned a lot from her. My whole life has been about what can I do for my community to give back, to make it better. I was a Girl Scout leader. I started an art parent program. I coached youth sports. I ended up on my neighborhood association board. I ended up being a leader in the effort to save Hulls Gulch, and we were successful in that. Then I helped write a plan for the foothills so that other foothills development wouldn't have that same impact. Once I got elected to the city council, actually right before I got elected, was working on historic preservation districts for residential districts, first ones in the state of Idaho, still the only ones. I got to vote on that right after I was elected. Since I've been on the City Council, I've worked on a comp plan, I've worked on a regional plan, I'm on the Compass Board. If I'm honored enough to be reelected, I'll be chairman of that board next year, and we'll work on the next regional plan from that chairmanship. I've done little things. I worked on the Shamrock Bikeway in this neighborhood. I worked on Whitewater Boulevard, which was envisioned as just a 5-lane arterial, and it's not. And, and I've added $2 million to the transit system so that we can have better transit service even without local option tax.
So I have committed my whole short life to serving others. Oh, I guess I should start off. I am from Boise, as I mentioned earlier. I feel very lucky that I was born and raised here, and I often tell people if I wasn't born here, I would want to live here too. So I get why people are choosing to call Boise home. But I have committed my whole short life to serving others and to finding ways to get more involved. But more importantly than that, I've committed myself to finding ways to help others get involved in serving their communities. In high school, I was the vice president of the National Honor Society, finding ways for students to get involved in our local community. When I went to the University of Idaho, I was the coordinator for the Volunteer Center. Once again, finding ways to help other students be a part of this change, be a part of this conversation on how we move forward together. I served in the Peace Corps. In the Peace Corps, I was elected to be on the council for the Peace Corps to better find ways to get volunteers to help serve their communities. This is something that I'm committed to doing. Once I returned home, I was appointed again by Governor Little to serve on his commission, helping everyday Idahoans get involved in their own communities, to serve one another, to take care of one another, and to truly help one another move forward in the right direction. That's what I'm really committed to doing. In addition to that, I also serve on the Boise Young Professionals Community Engagement Team. Once again, this is a great way for me to help other young professionals right here in Boise, Idaho, serve one another, get involved, and stay involved in our community.
All right, thank you. So this time I'll be starting the questions right here with Mr. Fuller. So this is a question about representation. Most cities we've lived in have council members that represent designated geographic areas within the city. Boise has no such arrangement, and as such, all current members but one reside in close proximity to each other. As a result, many of us in the outer areas of the city are left with what seems to be little or no representation. I personally have a couple of issues that I would like to have discussed with the member who live near me, but cannot do it as I have a feeling that members who aren't near the area will not have much interest in my concerns. If elected, would you support changing the representation structure to include designated geographic areas for council members, or what else might you do so that people in all of the city feel represented?
So I think that this is a great question. As a first-time candidate, I knew I was going to have to do this an old-school way, where I go around neighborhoods and I have genuine conversations with everyday Boiseans about what they want to see going forward. I have knocked on 1,700 doors since I first started this to truly get a good idea of what it is that people want. I have knocked on doors along Eagle Road, South Cole, the Bench, the North End, the East End, the Northwest area to really get a better feel. And this is something that comes up so often in this neck of the woods headed west. People don't feel like they're getting the representation that they deserve. And I think most importantly, we need elected officials that are willing to go out and knock on those doors and have those conversations with folks in all areas of our city to truly make sure that we have fair representation and that the concerns that we have about right now and the future are being addressed. I think it is so incredibly important. People do often talk about districts, and I think it's certainly something that we should be looking into. We are a growing city, and I think that there certainly could be something to be gained there. I think we should certainly make sure that we look at the pros and the cons of districting to ensure that it is making sure that we are all represented and that all of our needs are being addressed and not just one area. So that's really where I stand on that.
Thank you. You know, this issue comes up from time to time, and this is certainly the first time it's come up in the city of Boise. As I told you in my opening, I've lived in many different neighborhoods in this city, as have other council members who are currently serving. In the time I've served on the council, we had a majority from this part of the city at one point. So it isn't, right now, it is concentrated in the north and east end, but that hasn't always been the way, and it won't always be the way again. Having said that, of course, everyone in the city should have an opportunity to talk to a city council person, all city council people, and say, hey, I've got this concern, will you answer that concern? I think that the current system actually does work that way. I mentioned that I championed the Shamrock Bikeway. I championed that because neighbors from that neighborhood called me and said, we need a bikeway. We can't get from here to there. It's not safe. I don't want to ride on Cloverdale. I don't want to ride on Maple Grove. How can we do this? And we found a way and we made it work. So having districts opens up the city to some other issues that I think we need to think carefully about. How do you draw those boundaries? It has to be balanced by population. It opens up the possibility of gerrymandering or influence buying to figure out where those boundaries might be. How do you figure out which parts of the city go together within those boundaries? Again, you have all kinds of issues that might arise out of that. I'm happy to have the conversation, but I don't see that it would really gain us a lot. What gains a lot is all of you being in this room tonight, all the people here who are running for this seat, figuring out how to work for the whole city. Let's not get parochial and worry only about our own neighborhood. Let's worry about the whole city of Boise, because it really needs all of us working together to make it work.
So this is the most engagement I think that we've had at any of the forums, and we're in that part of the city that everybody thinks is not engaged. So I don't think it's true. And I worked over at Lowe's, and so I know the demographic over there, and I live on Collister, so I know the demographic there. I don't think that we, as a council person, want to actually put ourselves in that silo of only knowing our constituents that live in our area, because then you don't make yourself go out there and see the other people. And that's part of your responsibility, is to understand your particular area, but your responsibility is to force yourself to go out there and understand their needs, and for us to be here. Some of the parts of the city feel like maybe they're underrepresented because they're busy. Everybody at Lowe's, they were busy working. They didn't have time to do all of this like some of the other parts of the city do. But it's our responsibility as council to go and meet them where they need to be met. And so, and as a voter, I kind of like the idea of voting for all three people. I don't know if the 4 districts and the 2 at large would be something. And what it really comes down to is you guys, the voters, if that's what you want, then we need to abide by that.
I'd be interested in knowing some details on the districting. I'm not against it. I'm open to it. But we have some really awesome candidates up here from all parts of the city, and I would encourage you to vote. If the best candidate is in your neighborhood, vote for that person. In the meantime, on Planning and Zoning Commission, I already get to make decisions for the entire city, and I make those decisions based on putting myself in that neighborhood. If that was the house being built next to me or the development going in next to me, how would I feel about that, and what could I do to improve that? As if it was my neighborhood, making decisions based on every neighborhood in Boise is my neighborhood. And I think that's really my concern, I guess, with districting would be that if I only had to win in my own neyborhood, I would still be making decisions across the whole city, but I would maybe only understand the issues going on in my own neighborhood. Whereas now, I think Brady and I have tag teamed at the door several times past each other. I've also knocked on thousands of doors all across the city, and what that's allowed me to do is understand the issues from neighborhood to neighborhood, and a lot of them are the same, but some of them are also really neighborhood specific, and I wouldn't have known that and been able to make educated decisions across the city without that engagement.
So I think most people here will tell you that if that's a conversation the community wants to have, then it's a conversation that we should have. I don't have kids of my own. I've got thousands of kids that I work with every single day in every single neighborhood of Boise. And I think about the ability to vote for everybody. And if I was only able to vote in one district, it would really hurt my ability to be able to do that. I live in one district, I work in another district. I spend more time at the place that I work than I spend at home. But I think that the real thing here is that we need to make sure that we have city council members and candidates that are dedicated to reaching out to every single neighborhood in town. One of the first things that I committed to doing when I decided to run for city council was to visit every single neighborhood association. There's 36 of them. I've been to 28 of the 36. I've ridden my bicycle to almost every single one of them so I could get to know those neighborhoods, because there are different issues in each one. And then there's some overlapping issues as well. The other thing is that, like, yes, you need to vote, but you also need candidates who are dedicated to registering new voters and going into neighborhoods that have low voter turnout. And there are organizations in town who discourage you from doing those things. They say if you want to win, you go to the places that have the high voter turnout and you hit those ones. Our campaign has hit every single neighborhood in town, and that's what you need to make sure that you have people doing. I'm dedicated as a city council member, as a future city council member, to visiting at least 12 neighborhood associations my first year, and I would challenge other city council members to do the same.
Challenge accepted. As a former neighborhood association president, so I have had the opportunity to work with other neighborhood associations, and I think my concerns will probably echo my seatmates to my left here. There are some concerns, and I think what the bigger question is that we do have some populations within the city that are feeling underrepresented, and when you look at the voting numbers, that map, it shows it, and so it's been really important to my campaign to make sure that we are hitting every single corner of this city. And Jimmy and I are at neighborhood associations often together. What was really interesting to me is when I went and I got my big map of Ada County, of the city of Boise, I was told you only need to get one district because that's where the numbers are. And I said, I understand that, but I am running in a citywide race. No, really, if you just get the one map, that's okay. And I said, I'm going to go ahead and take the full map, because working with other neighborhood associations throughout the city, while we do all have very similar concerns, neighborhood concerns can be very specific and very focused. And as a city council member, I think what's crucial is to make sure that we are hitting these pockets of the neighborhoods or of the cities that don't feel that they have that representation. And like Jimmy, I have made that same commitment because I believe the value of neighborhood associations are great in this city, and the work that they do deserves to be recognized. I will be at those neighborhood association meetings. Thanks.
Okay, well, this question has come up a few times. I'm going to echo some of what's been said. We do want to have an entire community that's engaged. We do want to be making sure we're representing everyone's concerns. That being said, the other part of my background, aside from music and education, or music education, is science, right? Went to grad school for biology. I really like data. And so as this question's been coming up again and again, I looked at some data. And it's, as other candidates have said, there is a problem with voter participation in a lot of the areas of Boise, and certain areas have really high voter participation. Well, if you look at other cities that have gone to districts, you almost instantly see this huge uptick in voter participation. And that's paramount. That's what democracy is. You want to have people voting. You want to have people taking that binary decision that you all are going to make on November 5th. So that's important to me. I'm not saying I'm totally pro or totally con, but I do think it's a huge conversation that should be had with the whole community and see what the community wants.
Thank you for the question. I think this is one of the top questions that I always got when I was knocking on doors all over Boise, but mainly on the bench and West Boise, where I bought my house in a wonderful neighborhood a couple blocks away on Ustick and Maple Grove. I think it makes sense that many big cities are by district, and we elect our state officials by district here as well, so that it makes sense for a lot of folks to go by district. But also, it's good to see that, make sure that the city council members are working together without any district self-interest. And the second is they're working on the issues that are affecting the whole city instead of just learning about one district. That will help to strengthen the city council members to work as a team. I'm very advocate of working as a team, and I think this is another way of adding a dividing idea to already a full divisive issues that we have in this city and in this country. So I think what we need to look is I would really learn about the issues that are affecting the whole Boise as a big city, and I would love to work with the city council members really to solve the issues that are affecting the whole Boise.
Thank you so much for this question. I have an amendment to the city code that will ask that we pursue this conversation seriously and have districts in Boise. You can look at it on my website, and I have the map that shows where City Council currently resides. It's within 6/7 of City Hall, so including the mayor, are within 1 radius mile. So, and there's 83 square miles in Boise. So there's a lot of areas that are not represented throughout Boise, and they feel disenfranchised. And I want to be a strong voice for those who are underrepresented. When I moved here 26 years ago, I was surprised that they didn't have districts, and I've watched over the last 26 years how that power has been concentrated, so I started research. And that research has shown that in 2001, only 16% of the cities over 200,000 were currently in at-large elections. So since then, 3 lawsuits have been successful against cities that are at large, and so it's really putting us at risk for a lawsuit. And the reason is that the places that were underrepresented didn't have a chance to have a voice at the table. It's really important because it's what's fair and equitable to have a voice at the table for every corner of Boise, and it's about the process that every voice is at the table from the beginning of this discussion and not every 2 years when there's an election and we come out to different places, that they have a permanent voice at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. It's true. We have been getting this question a lot, and it's a tough one. So one of the things I heard was, I don't feel like you represent me, and that gets to something very meaningful. We are in a government. We're supposed to represent people. And the second thing we heard almost all of the candidates say is, Boise does have some issues with voter turnout. Some areas of the city turn out to vote, some areas don't. I think Elaine is exactly right. It's not the case that our city council is always from one particular area, but right now that's true. I have worries about districts, and I will tell you I don't know the answer. Honestly, I don't think any of us do. Election law is one of the most complicated Pandora's boxes that exists. It is an incredibly difficult problem to draw a map fairly. It's an incredibly expensive problem. So we should all be very cautious, and I think you've heard from most of the people that we are. My main concerns are drawing that map fairly, and my second concern is, even if you do draw the map in a particular way, if you do or don't have people voting inside that area, it doesn't ensure that the representation is good. What we need to do is elect candidates who listen, elect candidates who are good at seeing issues from multiple points of view, elect candidates who really care. Elect candidates who feel a prerogative to represent others as a matter of moral and social justice. One of the reasons I have so much caution and so much hesitation on this issue is that Councilwoman Lisa Sanchez, who is here tonight, is a champion of underrepresented voices. No one can dispute the fact that she is out there fighting the good fight for people who are not heard. She lives in the North End. So your address doesn't tell anyone anything about your values. Your values do. That's what we should be looking at.
All right, thank you. I want to turn to an issue that we probably have gotten more cards about than any other. It will be no surprise to the candidates, which is housing. While there's a whole bunch of different questions here, I think I'm going to read you one which talks about one person's individual experience and how you may be able to help. So this says, I am a single woman who lives alone. I pay $800 per month in rent. This person does not think that they're able to find comparable place where they could live alone in the same area. And there are many other people, veterans, the elderly, the disabled, who may be living on fixed incomes who are in a very similar position. So what would you do if you were elected to help this person and a whole bunch of people who are just like this across the city with their housing? We'll start down here.
I hear versions of this question a lot at the doors, and people have shown me their budgets, particularly people living on fixed incomes. And it is a horrible, horrible problem that our city has. There are people in our community who cannot make it, who will not make it if we continue on the trajectory that we're on. And the truth about that horrible problem is it has no immediate, simple solution. We need to do some big things to turn this around. We need to zone towards density along our transportation corridors. We need to construct, it sounds blunt, but we need to construct more houses. We have a housing shortage. That's a big part of the reason that housing is expensive. We need to do it in ways that result in affordable properties, in ways that result in affordable rents, and in ways that set us up for efficient transportation. Those are long-term solutions. In the near term, the programs that the city has, like the Grow Our Housing Initiative, projects like Valor Point, projects like Community New Path, the Housing Trust, which we're trying to get off the ground, are good starts. And we should be leaning into those as hard as we can. But we should also be recognizing that this is a large national problem. We're not alone. It has a lot to do with national trends involving wages, and it's a big one. It's going to take a lot of work.
My first goal to address affordable housing would be to not take the maximum annual increase for property taxes. That 3% added along with the appreciation of 14 to 17% that our houses appreciate every year, that would be upwards towards 20%. That compounded over many years really does affect people who are on fixed incomes, especially those people who invested in properties and are now older. So to me, it's really important that people have the opportunity to age in place, that they can, where they raised their families and made memories, and if they want to stay there and their house is paid off, that it's not because of property taxes that they have to move. Along with that, I actually am not a fan of just growing our housing. I think that needs to be in respect to the character of the neighborhood, and I don't think that supply and demand are the only two factors here. That if that was true, then in density, high density equaled low cost housing, then that would mean that San Francisco would have affordable housing. There's other factors involved, such as wages, and I think those need to be addressed as well. Thank you. I'm out of time.
Thank you for the question again. This is something that I've personally experienced as a new American coming to Boise and live in an apartment for 6 years before I bought my house here in West Boise. I was tired of paying an increased rent every 6 months when I was renewing my my lease. For your amazement, my mortgage was less than my rent I was paying 2 years ago. But that's not available for everybody. I work hard and I made plans and it worked for me. But the question is for you, that the single mom that raised the question, what can we do to solve this issue for you and for your children for the future, so that they have a place to live in the place where they call home? I think what we need to do is just prioritizing. What is the priority for Boise right now? What is something that we need to work on? And that's the housing crisis. We don't have houses. We're in shortage of affordable housing, but in general, the demand of housing is higher than the actual houses that we have in Boise. A lot of data showed that. So in Boise, what we need to do is just build houses, but mainly building affordable houses, working with private developers and nonprofits that are really willing to help solve this issue, investing their money and working with the city. So it really just prioritizing the issue, making sure that affordable housing is a priority for the city, and working with individuals that are willing to help solve the issue.
Affordable housing is an issue that comes up a lot. I think it's first and foremost on a lot of people's minds. It's a huge issue. I mean, there's urban planners getting their PhDs at Harvard that are putting their hands up. And no city that's experienced rapid growth has solved affordable housing. It's the intersection of so many powerful economic forces. But we're smaller. We're a smaller city, and we're smart. And so to me, we need to look at deliberative, data-driven solutions. We need to look to other cities and be like, did that work there? It didn't? Maybe not. that worked there, we should try it. Implement, be agile, and be nimble. But for me, as an advocate for youth and as an advocate for the empowerment of the next generation, this thing is a time bomb if we don't figure it out, right? The next generation's like, what are they going to do? Be way out in Ontario trying to drive in? Our air quality is already bad, right? Especially when you have an inversion. So for me, the biggest solution is wages. It's one of these really powerful intersecting forces. And wages, to me, I want to make sure we're empowering the next generation to be resilient, to be building creative entrepreneurship, to have all ages cultural spaces where they can hang out and find passionate things that they care about and they're inspired. That'll in turn into creative entrepreneurship, and it will turn into things like the next Albertsons or the next Simplot or the next Micron, the next homegrown creative entrepreneurial venture that will simultaneously elevate us all. So I'm worried about the next generation even more, and I want to make sure we're empowering them the best we can. Thank you.
This is one of those questions that if I had a magic wand, I would fix. But I don't, and it's not an easy issue to fix. It's going to be really hard, and it's going to take some time. And I think that it's going to be very multifaceted. $800 for one person is a lot of money a month. And if you're renting, not knowing what's going to happen month to month, there are solutions I think that we can look at for renting. And not to point out Councilmember Sanchez again, but she has started a process. And I would probably take that a step further, that we look at when rent is going to be increased, that adequate time is given to those rental increases, and then additionally looking at solutions towards application fees. That's where a lot of money can be made. If you're a landlord receiving 100 applications at $30 a piece, that's something that we can look at, waiting and to receive those application fees until the applicant has been narrowed down. If you're a homeowner paying $800 a month and you're on a fixed income, those taxes going up every year, that's problematic. And I've talked to several people who said, one more tax increase and I will have to move. So I look forward actually to working with the Idaho Association of Cities to bring back that circuit breaker tax to give some relief, to look at our budget and make sure that we are spending adequately and fairly. And thirdly, to work with nonprofits and faith-based communities within this valley. We have some really incredibly smart people. And as Ryan mentioned, looking to some best practices that other cities have done. I think that there's a lot that we can do, but really what it comes down to is we've got to come together and we have to bring those solutions together.
Yeah, the unfortunate answer to that question is that she's not going to be able to find that other space at that same price, and it's going to get more and more difficult, and that's not okay. That affects all the people that I work with in the nonprofit sector. It affects my staff. It affects people who are experiencing domestic abuse that can't find another place to go, and so they stay in a bad situation. Our city has a Grow Our Housing plan, 1,000 houses a year for the next 20 years. But that doesn't address the 8,000 units that we're short for affordable housing right now. And I really think that there's two ways where you address that issue. You preserve and you intentionally build. You preserve the housing that's out there right now. We look at things that's going on Boise Avenue and affordable housing that's potentially going to be torn down. And we have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to preserve that housing. And then we have to intentionally build. It's not just growing our housing, it's growing in a way that's specific to fit the needs of those 8,000 units that we're short. And we do that by offering every incentive that we can think of. We do that through public-private nonprofit partnerships. We know that these things work. We know that we don't have the tool of inclusionary zoning at a state level. And we know we've got a comprehensive plan, Blueprint Boise, that doesn't necessarily have the teeth to drive growth in the right way. So it's policies. It's anti-displacement policies. It's making sure that we have code ordinances that allow us to build the kind of housing that we need, and that we're offering those kind of incentives to our developers to make sure we address those 8,000 units.
So we know that rent is affected by property taxes and the cost of development. We've seen rents go up about 56% in 4 years, and wages are only gone up about 4% in that same time frame. So I think that ways that we can, as we've heard from some other candidates, we need to add housing, but it needs to be done in the right way. When you have to build a fire station to accommodate a new development, that costs everybody a lot of money. And I think it's decisions like that if we can build where we have existing infrastructure first, that costs developers less. And when it costs developers less, it costs renters less. Additionally, the other side of that is wages. And I guess I should say this is a very complicated question to answer in 60 seconds. So I'm going to do my best, but it's something I'm really passionate about and would love to talk more about offline. But so anyway, so if we're able to build where we have that existing infrastructure, but then additionally, my day job is in job attraction and working with businesses that are bringing new jobs here that are at or above the county average. And we need more of that. And that's linked to educate. A workforce is linked to education, and businesses make their decisions on available workforce. And all of these things are connected together. Education, housing, transit, jobs, all of these are together. And you really can't look at one without looking at that bigger picture.
I think we can all agree that housing is a commodity that we can't really do very much about right now. It's like in the 70s when the interest rates for buying a house were double digits, and there wasn't very much you could do about it at the time. And when we worked through it, and I think we're going to work through this as well. When they talk about wages, wages are going up. Our wages for our employees have increased about 30% in the last couple of years because they've had to, because we need to have employees. The wages at Lowe's haven't increased by that percentage, and I really wish they would, because my friends that work at Lowe's have to have one of their bedrooms, one who still gets to live in Boise, she rents one of her bedrooms out as an ADU so that she can pay her property taxes. And my other friend is 65, she should be retired, but she can't retire because she has to pay her property taxes. She lives in the North End. And so those are things that we need to discuss about that burden of property taxes on your housing, and that's something we can do do something about as council. That is something that we can not just surmise about, but it's something we can do something about. And when you're talking about rentals, what we keep forgetting is the renter is paying that property tax. The owner of the rental unit isn't absorbing that cost. That cost is going to the renter. And so by our property taxes going up, that's pushed down to the renter, and that's why they're part of why their rent is going up, aside from the fact that it's just the commodity of real estate right now.
Well, you've already heard what a complex issue this is. I'll try to talk briefly about all the pieces of it. We are 10,000 housing units behind by the numbers I know about, and that's as a region. So supply and demand is a piece of it. We don't have enough supply. Wages aren't as good as they can be. Yesterday we broke ground on an expansion of a local company that's going to almost triple in size out at the industrial park with good wages and benefits. We need more of that. I've been working hard to bring more of that. This is one of those boom periods. I tried to buy in the boom that Debbie talked about when interest rates were 14%. It was awfully hard. My husband and I made it through that, and we eventually found a house, but sometimes you have to wait things out. There's national investors investing in housing for the very first time, single-family housing. That's driving prices up. We can't do anything about that. Debbie's right. We can do something about property taxes. However, if you don't take the 3%, if the city of Boise hadn't done that last year, on the average house, it would have meant less than $40 of that increase that you saw in property taxes. What's happening with property taxes is a shift from commercial to residential. We can help with that by working with Senator Jordan and Senator Burgoyne on the bills they're bringing next session to raise the cap on the homeowner's exemption, to fix the circuit breaker, and to see if you can ameliorate the rate of growth when these big swings happen. And I will be doing that with those folks. The city of Boise is investing $5 million in trying to take the land value out of some housing. That will help. We need to open up the market for the private sector. This is two-piece. You can't have government housing only. You can't have private sector housing only, I don't think. So we need to open up the market to let the private sector build more. We need to support with what we're doing with the land trust and other things. All in all of the above. I'll be working on all of it if you reelect me. Thank you.
So this is a big question, right, when we do talk about housing, and there's a few different facets to it. But I want to talk about this example of this single woman, because I met a woman just like this the other day. So I learned about a luxury student housing project that was going to be going up on Protest Hill. Essentially, it was going to wrap around Big Judd's. And I wanted to go and meet the folks that were living in the current housing units to see what was going to happen when this project passed and where they were going to go. So I went door to door asking folks. And I met a woman. She was in her mid-80s. She had lived there for, I think, 10 to 15 years. And she said she had no idea because she knew that there was no other housing option that was at that same price. We have got to make sure that, like Jimmy mentioned, we are preserving people in their current housing units, especially in this housing crisis. We have got to make sure that we're focused on that. We've talked about wages. We've got to make sure that the new jobs that are coming here are paying decent wages. And I think really most importantly, our city council does need to be using the leverage that they have. And I know it's not a lot, but I truly believe that we need to be using that. I am proud that our campaign for Seat 5, we are the only ones that have not accepted developer money. We have not accepted special interest or PAC money. We are built on everyday people. And when I get up there to make decisions, it's going to be based off working families and ensuring that we're doing everything in our power to really protect people, to keep them in their homes, and to make sure that housing units are available and affordable for everyday people here in Boise.
All right, thank you. I just want to remind the candidates to please respect the 1-minute rule in your answers. Most of you are doing a great job, but just a reminder. We'll be starting here for this question. So this is a bit of a change of pace to talk about community health and especially mental health. This question says, veterans are twice as likely as the general population to take their own lives. Our veteran suicide rate in Idaho is 17% higher than the rest of the nation. Our youth suicide rate in Idaho has risen by 56% over the past 10 years. When you reach City Council, how would you better address some of these mental health issues, and what role do you think the city of Boise could play in helping to solve some of these problems?
I think that this is a huge problem. I think it's something we must be talking about. I'm grateful to be a part of a generation that is recognizing the role that mental health plays in our community and the value added when we are openly able to talk about the mental health that we're experiencing. And we've got to make sure that this is a part of the conversation going forward. I was just telling somebody the other day that 6 years ago, my grandpa committed suicide. He was a Korean vet. And we didn't have the opportunity to talk about mental health. We didn't ever have the opportunity to have that conversation. Over the last 6 years, our country, our society has evolved, and we have gone in the direction that we need to be going in to make sure that we are making this a focal point of all conversations going forward. We absolutely need to have this conversation in our businesses. We need to be having it in our schools. We absolutely need to be having it with our youth, especially our youth that are LGBTQ. We've got to make sure they are at an even higher risk of suicide, and we've got to make sure that we are addressing these concerns. We are making people feel included and involved. Boise this year started Boise Kind. It's a new initiative, right, to bring people together, to feel included. Adding this into that is exactly what needs to happen. Treating mental health as a part of this, because that's exactly what it is, a part of making Boise a kinder, more inclusive place.
My father was a World War II vet, and he suffered from PTSD. Of course, nobody knew what that was at the time, but we all knew that he had mental health issues. It took a long time for him to figure out how to talk about it, and it's taken us as a society, as a country, a long time to talk about this stuff. It is now time. The city of Boise has been working with Ada County, and we know, for instance, that in Ada County, the suicide rate among men 45 to 55 is exorbitantly high compared to everyone else. Why is that? When you dig in a little bit, it's because their social connections are broken. One of the best things we could do as a city is to continue to build social connections, places where people can connect, support organizations where people can connect, and maybe build new kinds of places, new kinds of organizations where people can connect. Ryan talks a lot about venues for kids. I think we need venues for all kinds of folks. Places where you feel safe, just coming together, being with people maybe like yourself, maybe not, where you have a common interest and you can just have a social time. We've really lost that in this country. I think if there's one thing we could do, using Boise Kind to work on those social issues would be the best.
This is such a difficult conversation. I would imagine that there's not a person in this room that hasn't been touched by suicide. My friend Patrick, I talked to him, and it's been several years, but the very day before he committed suicide, you could see it in his eyes, and I tried, but it was apparently too late. But that was a few years ago, and I think that we need to get over the social stigma of mental illness, and we need to have more conversations, and this is where we're having those conversations, is with everybody, so that people don't feel like they're broken or there's something wrong with them, that they're feeling these things, that we're in America, we're just supposed to be so strong and to make it through all of these things, and that's just not true. At any moment in your life, you can be feeling this, and it might not happen to you your entire life. It might be for just a portion, or it might be something you do struggle with your entire life. But we still have comments every once in a while, like, oh, that crazy lady, or can you believe that crazy person over there? Those comments need to stop, because it continues the social stigma of mental illness, and that's how we need to get above this, is to just have everyday conversations with each other.
Yeah, I think as a city, what we can do is continue to invest in services and access to healthcare and continue this conversation. I was lucky enough to receive the endorsement from Planned Parenthood not because I can make a huge impact for women's health in the position of city council, but because I believe in human rights and access to healthcare, and mental health is certainly a part of that. Also, I agree with Elaine's answer in creating community clusters. I was lucky enough to attend a diversity and inclusion summit at BSU a couple of weeks ago, and what we found was that people are leaving Boise because they don't feel included, and not that mental health is the same as diversity and inclusion, but it's a part of it, right? People are feeling like they would be more welcome and more included somewhere else. It's more than being just nice. It's about creating community clusters where people feel like they can be around people that are like them. And I think that goes for people across our community, and making sure that we're keeping an eye on people, we're checking in with them at an early age, teaching them about the signs, but also definitely creating more community gathering places.
So doing what we're doing right now is an absolutely incredible place to start. We have to remove the stigma about talking about mental health issues. I really appreciate what both Elaine and Brady had to say about the Boise Kind Initiative and using this as a way to address issues of suicide and loneliness. I sit on the mayor's Boise Kind committee, and it is one of the conversations that we're having right now, and it's a huge conversation. This affects our veterans in a disproportionate way. It affects our LGBTQ+ community in a disproportionate way, and it affects our youth in a disproportionate way. It is the second leading cause of death in Idaho, is suicide. If one of us up here started to have a heart attack right now, there would be somebody in this room who knew CPR, and we could address that issue right now. There's another type of training called QPR, and this is being done all across the state. The Speedy Foundation, one of the nonprofits that I partner with, is working hard to try to get this implemented to our first responders, our emergency workers. I think you always have to start with where you're at, and I would love to see the city implement a QPR training for every single one of their staff members. It's a 2-hour-long training, and it could be part of something that we do there, and we start and we lead by example there, and we continue to push it further out. A couple weeks ago, I was at the Veterans Wellness Center up on Vista, and I sat down with a couple of veterans, and we made pinch pots. And for a while, like, we didn't know who each other were, but pretty soon we were talking, and we got to know each other, and we were sharing space. And like what Ryan is referring to as far as these cultural centers, we have to have these places for people to go where they feel safe, where everyone is welcome. I've done that at the Boise Bicycle Project. I think these are things that we can do in addressing these really hard issues.
Can I just back up for a minute? What is QPR?
Question, persuade, refer.
Thank you. Might have been the only one that needed to know. So I feel that mental health is community health. If we are truly a healthy community, then we are paying attention to the health of all of our populations. Our youngest ones, our oldest ones, our ones that feel that they don't match, that they do match, that they fit the spectrum or not. We have to, as a community, make sure that we are including everybody in that conversation, and it starts with the conversation. One of the things that I was able to do with starting the nonprofit at helping seniors age in place, one of the primary reasons that I got involved in that is because seniors veterans, and I might get emotional, it's that loneliness that creeps in, and housing, I think, plays a part in that. When we're pushing our senior population to the periphery because they can no longer afford the house that they're in the place that they grew up or that they've spent their last 50 years, and we've pushed them to the periphery of town so that they can afford something, they don't have services, they don't have connections, they don't have ways to get into town because we also see that they don't drive as much. It is so important that we are looking at all of the angles of this matter, that we are, like Jimmy said, we're talking about it, we're asking the questions, we are being there. Look to your neighbor and ask, how are you doing today? Make that phone call. How many times do we just go in our garage and into the house and we don't say anything? It could mean the life or death of somebody. Just say, how are you doing today?
Okay, so this is also a very multifaceted question. There's a vet component, there's a youth component. I've actually read higher statistics. I think if you look at the Intermountain West, it's just really disproportional to the rest of the country in terms of teen suicide. And I know that the statistic I read was in Idaho was actually 73% in the last 10 years. And so as a person who works with hundreds of kids every week, and sees so many teenagers, both at Boise State and Boise Rock School, I've been teaching at BSU while I've seen this huge shift. And the huge shift that I've seen are phones. They're these things that are so seductive, and we look down at them and we're so engaged. But for a teenage mind, the profound implications of a Facebook like or an Instagram like or whatever carries much more than it does for an adult. And it can literally destroy someone's self-esteem very quickly. But I also know that for teens, if they're experiencing a mental health crisis, access isn't there. There's almost no options for somewhere to go. And that's scary. So I know we need more access to mental health care and supportive care, but I know it's been, preempted. You guys said it, which I appreciate it, but we have to have community health centers. I talk a lot about all ages cultural hubs, but those places to me are community health centers. They're places where you can go learn music. You can go talk. You can go learn ceramics and do pinch pots. You can be around people and not looking down at that dang phone, because that phone's no good for you usually, and it's definitely not always good for the teenage mind. So, thanks.
This is one of the issues that we always talk in my unit at Gowanfield all the time, and it's a hard topic. I've lost a friend of mine for suicide 3 years ago, and we have no idea what caused that person to take his life away. The mental issues is one problem, but there is another problem that we have failed to deliver, and that's social issues. Do we have housing for those who once raised their hand to serve the country that they loved? Do we have a health care for those who serve their country in war and combat situations outside the country when they get back here and when they finish their service for the country? This is something that, of course, a bigger issue, and this is something the city need to work with our state elected officials to make sure that we have accessible housing, available housing for veterans, and access to health care. Once they're in the Army, of course, they have health care, but once they're out from the whole all health care opportunities that once they have. And they don't have an affordable housing and health care to really just depend on their life. And this is something that really causing the suicide and of course, another big issue that we always touched, as I think Murda's mentioned that.
Thank you. This is a great question, and my heart goes out to any family who's dealt with this or is dealing with this. It is something that's dear to my heart. It is something that when I was 18, my brother took his life. And so I think it really does have to do with social connections, and that starts with a few different things. One is the schools, and I'm not I just think that as a teacher, it's important for us to reach out to the students that may not have a specific niche to belong to and try to include them and reach out to them. I also think it's important for us to provide tools for families to be able to deal with these things. You know, simple tools sometimes. Even me as a mother, I sometimes look online, okay, help me, or I call my friend Jerry and ask her, help me with this. And we're all trying our best. I also think that it's wise to have different places that we can all go to, and I would put some emphasis on the arts, music therapy and art therapy, and you don't need to put therapy in it, but just some place that we can express ourselves through the arts. And then the last final thing that I try to do every day is to show people and look into their eyes that they matter, that they matter in the society and they have something to contribute. Thank you.
This public health issue, in a way, is one that everybody here has a personal connection to. Everybody in the audience has a personal connection to. We talked a little bit about my work for the Red Side Foundation, which is an organization directed towards this issue. And I think if I went out and polled any of you, I could come up with similar stories. This is something that touches all of us. If you are a veteran, you are disproportionately likely to be affected by this issue. If you are an Idahoan, you are disproportionately likely to be affected by this issue. If you're an Idahoan and you're young, you're massively disproportionately likely to be affected by this issue. From a public health perspective, there are some things that we know. We know that proximity to firearms and the presence of alcohol, major contributing factors. Those two facts correlate to increased likelihood of a successful suicide attempt. We also know that the culture that we are evolving into, one that is in the phone, not in the people around you, has some benefits. Teenagers are less likely to die in car accidents, less likely to get pregnant, less likely to engage in alcoholism, more likely to commit suicide. So our public health needs are changing with our times, and that is okay. Valor Point is a wonderful program for veterans. It provides housing and social services to this at-risk community. It's not enough. Purely by the numbers, someone in this room is dealing with this issue right now. Those are the statistics in Idaho. That is a failure of, it's a failure of our community. And the motivation and the will is here. I hope that all of the ideas you heard get embraced and collectively pursued by everyone, because it's too important not to.
I'm going to come right back to you, okay? All right. All right. Well, thank you all for your thoughtful answers. Shifting gears a little bit, we have a whole host of questions here about public transportation. I'm going to kind of combine a few of those together. A few people note that public transit ridership, bus ridership in Boise is generally speaking pretty low. We also hear a lot of conversation about how increased public transportation is one of our keys to decreasing traffic and congestion and things like this. So how would you increase or encourage ridership on public transportation within our current financial and budget framework, an arena where local option taxes are not an option?
It's too bad you took local option taxes off the table, because that's everybody's go-to solution. Actually, I'm worried about that. I'm not convinced that local communities would agree that that's how we should use our money. This is an area that's studied. This is an area that we know things about from other communities. There are people who devote their careers to studying traffic. One of the things that is a fact is that the more reliable and the more prompt and the more regular public transportation is, the more frequently people use it. If you need to wait 30 minutes to get on the bus each way, you're less likely to spend an hour standing on the street to take the bus. Short headways, that's the buzzword for it, the headway, the amount of time it takes from one bus to come to the next. Short headways, more than almost anything else, drive ridership of public transportation. The second thing in Idaho is cultural embracement of public transportation as an option. We don't ride the bus in Idaho. That's not our culture. When I moved to California to go to law school, it took me a long time to figure it out. Education and assisting people, particularly people who really are in need of that service. Here's how it works. Here's how you do it. Pushing people towards it are both two tangible things that you could do for free.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a bus system, and currently I think it would be helpful if they were on time. I've heard quite a few people say that the bus left early from the scheduled time, which is a real deterrent to catching the bus. I used to live in Germany for a short time, and the Straßenbahn was a very regular way of life, and it was a great way to get to the center of the city. Obviously, we don't have a Straßenbahn, but the bus system is something that I would really advocate for us to use, because it is something that we do have incorporated into our city already. So, number one, to move on time, and then to increase the times and to increase the routes so that it's actually usable, and also to have it go to later times and more frequent times. So, and then also to incorporate it as a habit. I think that needs to be something that a part of education, that we teach people and encourage that. Maybe through our school systems that we have, let's ride our bus for the day and take a look at that. Also, I did hear a very interesting statistic that our emissions have increased by 14% per capita. And that means congestion. So we do need to deal with this problem so we can deal with the clean air. Thank you.
I would like to point out to one of my friends on the audience, Marino. She posted a wonderful text on Facebook about the bus, and she heard a lot of people saying, people don't use the bus, people don't use the bus. Well, when I come here, I relied on the public transportation for 6 months before I bought my first car at 22 years old. Back then, I had 2 jobs and full-time school. Well, at night, I was riding my bike for 45 minutes to get home from classes at CWI. People use when the buses are available and affordable. But if, as Patrick mentioned, if they're not available and accessible, and if they have options, they would go for the better option. The largest population that utilize public transportation is the New American community. They relied on the public transportation while they're working multiple jobs at a time. So I think this is something that we can, again, make sure that it's our priority and work to improve that.
Okay, transportation. Well, to me, it's like, I'm going to reference back to what Karen just said. We have a higher, in the last 10 years, we've had a higher increase in per capita CO2 auto emissions than Los Angeles. That's nuts. And for an area experiencing frequent inversions, that's super nuts. And that's putting like respiratory health at a higher risk. And so for me, the biggest thing to figure out is the long trip, right? And that's going to take much more of a valley buy-in, a much more equitable buy-in from all the cities that are going to be served by a longer trip that runs through the valley. That being said, because I think the question said we couldn't increase the budget or something like that, right?
They want to know within the current budget.
Current budget. It's hard to change behaviors later, but it's easy to change them early. And so I would love to see more of an arts and cultural component to our bus system. There's no reason why some of our buses can't have musicians on the bus every Friday. You jump on the State Street line, you're like, yeah, maybe I'll wait 10 minutes because Jonathan Warren's playing. That'd be so cool. You make it a cultural experience, right? Or VRT could partner with organizations like the Idaho State Historical Museum, and during the summer, literally offer educational tours on lines that are already going. And a mom and her son would be like, okay, we'll jump on the 9 a.m. line. There's going to be this education tour guide pointing out historical things in Boise. The kid's going to love it. They love big trucks and big things that move, and it's like the kid's going to keep dragging his mom back on and be like, can we go get back on the bus? So you're increasing ridership. So to me, it's like big trips paramount, ridership's paramount. We can get creative there, and it won't cost very much money, if any.
So without increasing the budget, this is probably the most challenging question of the night. And I give my story of I had a meeting and it took me an hour on the bus when I could have walked in that amount of time. I could have driven in less time, but it was May in Motion, and I wanted to support May in Motion, and I thought this is my opportunity to start riding my local bus system more. And even with my daughter, wherever she ended up, we tried to take it after school, but we missed the one after school, so we have to walk into downtown, we have to get a smoothie, we have to wait 30 minutes and make sure there are no appointments so that we can get home or wherever we need to go. So I think really increasing those head times. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can do that without money. And increasing, I think to increase ridership, I think that we've got to look at some sort of campaign that buses are cool to ride, and we are becoming a city, a big city now, not a big city, a bigger city, and that's what is important to our community health, is getting those single car trips down, getting those emissions out of the air, making sure that we all have clean air to breathe. And so I guess maybe if we can shift the budget within the current system, can we go that way? Thanks.
So I want to talk about emissions just a little bit differently. A lot of the lower income kids that I work with live along really busy streets. Some of them live right next to the freeway, and they have higher cases of asthma because of the emissions that are in our city. And so when the traffic is starting to go up and when the emissions are starting to go up, that means that if you live in a certain area of our town, you're more likely to grow up with health problems than other areas. And because of that, it's everybody's responsibility to be using alternative forms of transportation, whether that's taking mass transit, walking, biking, whatever it is that we do. And we have to destigmatize the bus as something that's for low-income communities. This is something that's for everyone. I love going to a city and never having to rent a car or get in a car and use good mass transit around where we go. And so I think that there are things that we can do that don't cost anything. Several years ago, the mayor had a walking challenge that thousands of people participated in. The mayor walked every single day to City Hall. We could be doing those types of challenges. I'm on a couple of committees for VRT. One of them is Neighbors United, and it's to help people in the refugee population overcome transportation barriers. And one of the things that we could do is we could create ambassador-style programs to really get people out there riding the bus, letting people know that this is something that we can do if everyone's doing it. And the learning curve is like this. You'll mess up the first time, and then after that first time, you've got the bus down. We need best-in-class routes on every area of town, and I think as we get more riderships, we'll get more funding to get more of those best-in-class routes.
So I think there's a few solutions here. Ridership, it might be low. We don't always see the buses full. Definitely people are riding the bus. But I think that there's a couple of things. If we can partner with other communities to make sure that we're getting equal buy-in for our bus and not just Boise subsidizing the bus for the entire valley. So that's not changing Boise's budget. But also I look forward to entering into this role with a positive working relationship with ACHD. I think if we're able to prioritize that with them, then we'll see some response on that as well. I have a friend that lives in the North End, and it would take him 2.5 hours to get to his classes at CWI. That's not convenient. I was lucky enough to grow up in a place where it was convenient to ride the bus. I started riding the bus to middle school, in fact, and my mom made me wear this body alarm, which had this weird cord you could pull, and it would make this crazy noise. But of course, I never had any issues. She was a single mom who was working all day and couldn't come pick me up. But if the bus is convenient, it's an awesome option, not just for young people, but not just for people who can't drive, but really for those of us who are looking for options, so that we can make sure that we're not making people get out of their single-driven car. That's fine if somebody's never going to change that habit, but for the rest of us who are looking for options, we need to continue to invest and expand all of the options that we have.
So the bus is pretty important in my campaign. It goes right in front of my house. I actually love the bus. My children rode the bus when they went to school, and that's when Boise had it, and it was a really great bus system. I did the same thing Jimmy did. We did ride with Debbie instead of ride my bike, and I did ride the bus with Debbie. So on 2 of the occasions when I did Ride with Debbie, even though the bus was right in front of my house, the bus came early, and so I missed the bus. I just walked back into my house. All the people came back into the house, and we waited for the hour for the bus to come back. This was on one of the occasions. But if I had a job that I needed to be to, that's a big issue. That's a really big issue. And the other, I couldn't catch the bus on the weekend, so I had to walk the 1.5 miles to where I could catch the bus. And that bus was early, so I went in and had some coffee, which is fine. But again, if I would have had a job, that would be a really big issue and a really big barrier to riding the bus or not riding the bus. We've invested a huge amount of money, the city has, and I think that we should invest that money. I think it's a great social program, and I think we need to continue that social program as a social program. But the amount of money we've increased in the last 2 or 3 years has not resulted in any more ridership or a bus system that runs on time. And so we really need to we really need to look at that. We need to do a deep dive into why that is. In our business, we wouldn't invest huge amounts, millions of dollars, and not wonder why it wasn't working. In corporate business, in Lowe's, they wouldn't invest huge amounts of money and then not seeing the benefit. So we just need to stop and wonder why it's not working and figure that out and make a great bus system. I love the bus. I want to actually be able to ride the bus.
Can I ask you to clarify the question? Because I don't think there was no more money to spend, but
how would you increase ridership within the current budget? Local option tax underlined is not an option.
Okay. So I asked that on purpose. Many of you know that transit has been a passion of mine for many years, and I've worked really hard to improve it as much as I could within the system that we have. And there are ways to do it. And the investments that we've made the last few years have, in fact, made a tremendous difference in the kind of service we have. We have 3 routes now that have 15-minute service all during peak hour and run till 9:30 at night. Those 3 routes are increasing ridership. The rest of the system is having difficulties, which it always does, frankly, when gas prices are low. That's another metric that you have to look at. But what can we do to do more? Well, the reason I was able to put more money into the bus system this year, or that I proposed that, was that we changed the way we budget for it. Instead of budgeting as a line item and a dollar amount, we made it a percentage of our property tax revenue, and that we put that at 5%. None of the other cities or counties in the valley are over 0.5%. And so by doing that, we kind of set a marker out about what could the rest of you do. And already Meridian and Eagle and Ada County are interested in doing it this different way, which will bring more money into the system to ensure that we can have a better system overall. As president of VRT over the last 3 years ago, when they redid their plan, for the first time ever, I insisted that we put money with it. That we've never put money with it because we don't have money. Well, if you don't have money and you can't spend it, I guess you shouldn't put money with it. We now know what it will cost to actually make this system work, and we know that with $10 million a year more, we can have a relatively decent system. We've gotten $2 million of that $10 million. I think if we work with the rest of the valley, we might get close to the full $10 million. There is already rider training. It's volunteers who go and teach people how to ride the bus. We're also working on first mile, last mile connections to those best-in-class routes. If you reelect me, I will continue these forward. We're making progress, and we're getting ready to make more.
As a young person, I recognize that public transportation is the future, and that's the direction that we need to be going in. I think something that we can be doing right now to ensure that ridership goes up is responsible growth. We need to ensure that we are putting housing in places where people can easily and accessibly get on public transportation. That's what we have got to see going forward, especially when we're out in this neck of the woods and you go even further west, Meridian, Nampa, Caldwell, you're seeing these apartment complexes sprawl up. These cars are coming into our commute every single day because there are not these bus transportation options. So when we talk about growth, we've got to make sure we're not just responsibly growing as a city, but we are responsibly growing as a valley and as a region. We have got to have a conversation with the cities around us to ensure that we are responsibly growing and that we're responsibly putting new housing in areas where people can easily access this transportation. Again, with the air quality that we're experiencing and we're going to experience in the future, I know as a young person that public transportation is our only option. So we've got to start designing a city right now that matches that and that fits that and that allows people to easily access that transportation option.
All right, thank you all. Well, it is 8:40. The library closes at 9, and we want to leave you all with some time for closing statements. We also need about 10 minutes to pack up all of our gear and get out of here. So with that, unfortunately, we are done with audience questions. So for those of you who did not have your questions asked, I apologize. We have well over 30 questions here. I would encourage you all to reach out to the candidates. I'm sure they would be happy to answer them at some point in the future. So with that said, I will start here with 1 minute closing statements, and then we'll conclude the evening.
Well, once again, I just wanted to thank you all for coming out tonight. Really, a focus of this campaign has been doing exactly this, bringing people into the conversation, meeting people where they're at to ensure that we're truly better understanding what it is that Boiseans want to see going forward. I've been committed to it through door knocking, to recognize what people want to see going forward, ways to provide more affordable housing, ways to protect our backyard that we all love and care so much about, ways to move our city and our valley forward in the right direction, and I'm committed to doing that. When I'm out door knocking, there are two things that I usually tell people. The first is that when we talk about the future of our city, for me, it isn't some far-off idea. I am the youngest candidate seeking office, and when I talk about the future, it is my life, and I want to make sure we're doing everything in our power to protect that future, not only for my life, but for the future generations. The second thing that I often tell people is that I think we can be grateful for the work that's been done over this last 16 years, and we can be grateful for where our city has come. But I think we can also be excited about a new voice with new energy and new passion as we begin this next chapter in Boise. So thank you all. I really do appreciate you coming out, and I would love to have your support on November 5th. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I've always been an agent of change. Everything I've done my whole life, I've said, what's happening today? What can we do to make it better? I'm not going to change now, except to continue to be that agent of change. If you re-elect me, I will work on all of the same things that I've worked on in the past, but I will look to the future and say, what are the new challenges that we're facing? Housing, wages. How do we make that next step to transit? How do we make the next step on smart growth? I've worked on smart growth for most of my adult life. We've already begun building housing in the right place, but how do we take it to the next step so that we have those transit corridors where that housing is being built? There's many others. I don't know what they are, but I also know that I have the skills to facilitate conversations to find those solutions. I've proven that many, many times. I think we have those conversations to have over the next few years. And if you re-elect me, I'm happy to be at the table, to bring solutions, but more importantly, to listen to all of you and bring everything together so that we can find consensus for how we can go forward. That's how I've worked my whole life, and that's how I'll continue to work, and I hope you'll give me the honor of re-electing me. Thank you.
So if Brady and I wouldn't have become such good friends over this whole thing, I don't know how I'd feel about him calling me old over and over. I think something that we haven't talked about very much, and I would imagine a big portion of why we have so many people up here this election season, when we've had other election seasons where we had unopposed candidates, is Proposition 1 and 2. It's important to have your citizens, especially in our valley. I've lived here my whole life, so I know how important it is to us that we get to be reflected in the things that are built here, that we get to be a part of that conversation. We get to be at that table. It's incredibly important to us, which is how the citizens are actually the ones who started things like the Foothills Levy, like Hulls Gulch when she was a citizen. And it's important for us to remember that, and that's why, well, I know you are, and you're old too. I'm just telling you in case you forgot. Right? But we need to not forget that it's all of us as citizens. We're the ones who built this city, and we should never, ever discount that voice. We need to always remember that.
So I wanted to leave you with a few things. First, I am asking for your vote. A few years ago, I wanted to be prepared for this role, and I have worked to expand my knowledge base with conscious decisions to pursue that preparedness. Leaving my job at Ballet, Idaho, so I could better understand what big business needs to succeed here, and maybe even more importantly, why they're choosing not to come here. Also, joining the Planning and Zoning Commission, so I could really understand how decisions are made at that level of the municipal level, and what resources are used to make those decisions. I think it's because of that preparedness that I've received endorsements from, as I mentioned, from Planned Parenthood, but also from the Conservation Voters of Idaho, the Boise Regional Realtors, the building contractors of Southwest Idaho, the firefighters, Local 149, and then just recently this week, the Idaho Statesman. Sorry, KTVB, but I understand you don't endorse. But I think it's because of that preparedness that I was able to receive those endorsements. I spent hours on those questionnaires, and many of them were followed up with personal interviews. And I was having a similar conversation with both the builders and the conservationists, because I really understand how decisions can be made within that space with conservation at the forefront, but also using development and smart planning to really protect our quality of life here, and instead of diminish it. So I'm asking again for your vote tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you all again for the questions that you submitted tonight. This is the best forum that we've had so far. The questions that we got were from you. And there were real questions about real concerns here in Boise, and it was really refreshing to get those tonight, so thank you. When I started running this campaign, I took a risk. I decided that I was going to surround myself with underheard and underrepresented voices in Boise, and I established an advisory committee to make sure that when we were talking about these issues, we were talking about them in a holistic way with people who are affected by the issues the most. And we made a promise to ourselves that we were going to go out to areas with underheard and underrepresented voter areas as well. We were going to knock in neighborhoods that hadn't been knocked on before. We were going to register new voters, and we were going to bring new people to the table. That's not a great way to get endorsements. And we knew that that was a risk that we were going to take, that it wasn't necessarily a winning strategy, but it was a responsibility that we all have as candidates to be making sure that we are knocking in every single neighborhood. And in that way, we've already won. We have people who are on our steering committee who will someday run for office because of the experience that they had. We have hundreds of people in Boise who will be first-time voters this year, and that matters. And I look at people like Tekla, and I know that Tekla has already won as well, because he has gone through the effort to register these new voters, to bring new voices to the table. And when we are talking about overcoming the biggest obstacles that we face in our city, that is how we do it, by bringing everybody's voice to the table. I'm proud of my history of doing that at the Boise Bicycle Project, and I'm so excited to do that as a campaign and as a candidate for City Council. Thank you.
I want to echo the thanks for you all coming out to listen to us tonight, taking several hours out of your time, and KTVB and League of Women Voters, I want to thank you all for being here as well. My years of experience have led me to this moment, working with the neighborhood association, being a leader, being a listener, which is more important to me, have brought me to this position, because I feel in the work that I have done in the last couple of years, not enough voices are being listened to. There's a lot of great candidates up here, and the most challenging piece now lays with the voters. But I ask tonight that you look towards experience and hard work. I have proven my experience with my neighborhood, and I've proven my hard work in standing up at City Hall and planning and zoning on more times and more occasions than I can count, diving into the zoning code and the many intricate plans that the city of Boise has, learning those to make sure that I can help bring my neighbors' voices to City Hall. I have the support of some local leaders, Representative Brooke Green, several former city council members, because they know I have what it takes. But ultimately, those aren't the endorsements that matter. What matters are the voice of the people and the community support that I have received in knocking on doors and talking with members. I've shown that I'm willing to stand up and bring everyone's voice to City Council, because I believe that different perspectives and different views really are what make a great city. So tonight, I'm asking for your vote for me, Brittany. And again, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Yeah, again, thanks so much for being here. It's been I wouldn't say, I started it by saying we're going to have fun tonight, and there were a couple questions where I was like, this isn't a fun question. But we made it. My name is Ryan Pack. You can just remember, what the heck, vote Pack. You know, when I think about, you know, the council, to me it's a lot like the board of directors for a nonprofit. And as a person who works in the nonprofit sector, you want to have people that are there that are creative problem solvers with a track record, right? And so a lot of times you get asked about kids, like, well, what are you going to do to empower youth? What are these things you're going to do? And I'm like, okay, let's start with parks. When I walk through a park, I'm like, wait, why is this park only activated for little kids and field sports? Like, why can't we have a little skateboard area here? Why can't we have a little climbing wall here? Why can't we get kids out and with each other? And when I say kids, teens and young adults, right? Why can't we have all of our parks have access to a kid that wants to skateboard, or a kid that wants to learn to rock climb, or whatever, right? But the other thing I want to leave you with is that we are all very multifaceted. And in addition to working with kids and doing music, I do teach in the biology department at Boise State. I have a rich conservation history. I care deeply about conservation. In fact, my first step into this campaign, it was immediately tested, right? I got this donation, they're like, hey, order some yard signs. And I was like, is that what you do right out of the gate? And I looked it up and I was like, wow, these yard signs are non-recyclable plastic. And I couldn't do it. My values, I couldn't do it. I was like, I know this is going to hurt my name recognition, but I can't generate whatever, 300, 400 sheets of non-recyclable plastic into the world for a person that's wanting to empower the next generation and wanting to look out for the future of our city and our world. So I didn't do it. And I know that hurt my name recognition, but I know it says that I'm not going to sacrifice values to do politics. Like, they're there. Idaho boy, that's how it works, right? So I am asking for your vote. I'm asking you to put your faith in me. We need to empower our youth. We need to build resilience. We need to know that the next generation that's coming up is going to be okay. And there's a lot of things that we need to address to do that. I hope you vote November 5th if you haven't already voted. And I hope you vote for me. Thanks so much.
Well, friends, whether you're here or at home, I have a question for you. What action would you take to solve the issues that we have been talking this evening? For you, I think it's easy, at least for now. Just go out and vote. I mean, not right now, but tomorrow morning. The polls are closed. But really, that's what's going to solve these issues. The issues that we have been talking this evening are the issues that I personally went through that made me strong and made me to work hard. And I was able to pull myself out of these issues. But we have a larger new American community and a working class family struggling to make life out of this. With the housing crisis, with the public transportation issue, safety is something, a growing concern in the city that we did not have a chance to talk to. The issues that we have been talking this evening, I did not take any extra effort to learn about them. Those are the issues part of my life. Those are the issues part of the community that I belong. Those are the issues that we always talk in our lunch and dinners after a long bus ride. No, really, mainly for families. Single moms and dads that have multiple jobs. They get home at night, sometimes with walks, because they cannot get on time to the bus and they have to walk 3 hours, 2 hours to get home, or bike. So I'm going to ask you your vote and help me to take these issues beyond this room, to the City Hall, and beyond the City Hall, to the state. So, because some of the issues are issues that cannot be solved at the city level. And my name is Dr. Gabriel Michael, and I'm running for seat 1. And I hope to earn your vote.
I have chosen to run for Boise City Council based on principles, values, and integrity. And I know asking for your vote is asking for your trust. Your trust that I will listen to you, that I will communicate with you, and that I will take action. And I have support from local leaders who do just that. Please take a look at my website, and you'll see statements of support from Senator Cherie Buckner-Webb, Morgan Hill, and Dr. Richard Llewellyn, the president of the Northwest Neighborhood Association. A friend of mine asked me, what makes you so strong to stand up against these really big corporations, such as I did stopping the $70 million incinerator that was threatening, Dynamis, that was threatening our air quality. And we stopped Dynamis, and I led that. And it really made me think, it has to do with my upbringing. And I was raised on a ranch, and whether I was dealing with a horse or a three-quarter ton bull, I learned to stand my ground on a daily basis. So whether that is a bull in the ranch or a bully on the playground or a bully in government, I will stand my ground, and I will ask the tough questions, and I will appreciate your tough questions. I choose courage over comfort because that is the way to make good, solid progress. And I ask you, I am Karen Danley, and I ask you to stand united with me and vote for me, Karen Danley, on November 5th.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Bajan, and I want you to vote for me. This is, before we get into it, thank you everybody here who came. Thank you, KBTV, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. I was kind of thinking as people were answering, this is an organization that has done amazing things for the country for the last 100 years and counting. And if you're not grateful for that, it's just because you don't know, and you actually are. Right now, I think, in the United States and here in Boise, people more than ever want to feel the power of their vote. They want to vote, and they want to see something happen. That's, I think, some of the impetus behind the ballot initiatives. That's why you have so many candidates up here tonight. And that's a powerful, incredible thing. We also are in a period of time in Boise where things are changing. Some things are changing too fast. Some things aren't changing fast enough. We have so many difficult challenges that no elected official can be an expert on all of them. No constituent can be an expert on all of them. One of the things that I urge you to think hard about as you are deciding how to give the power of your vote is, who is the person who I most trust to handle these hard issues? Who do I most trust to work with other people? Who do I most trust to listen? Who do I most trust to be accountable to me, to respond to me, to pick up the phone when I call, and to listen to what I have to say? I hope you conclude that I am that person. I've been endorsed by virtually every organization that endorses. I've been endorsed by the conservation voters, and I've been endorsed by the realtors. Those two organizations don't always agree, but they agree that I am a good partner, and they agree that they trust me to work through their issues. I've been endorsed by the building contractors, by the labor unions for my interest in wages. I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood. And then most recently this week, I was endorsed by the Idaho Statesman, explaining exactly the pitch I'm making to you today, that I am a good, measured partner. I hope to earn your vote. I am Patrick Bajan. If you have any questions for me, call me, and please vote. Thank you.